So now that we're on page 12, we're going to do a little review, a little warm-up. It says graph the following. And the first one is y equals negative 4x minus 1. This should be old stuff because this is slope-intercept form, right? Y equals mx plus b, right? And so let's start by labeling the m and the b. The m is the negative 4, and the b is the negative 1. And so what do? We begin at negative 1. So we go down to negative 1, and we put a point right there. That's where we begin. And then a slope of negative 4 tells us to go down 4 over 1. So from this point, we go down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, put a point. And we can't put any more points over here, so we go back up. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left one. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left one. And then we can connect those two dots, or all of those dots, not just two of them. If you have questions on that, feel free to turn to a neighbor and see if you two can figure that out together, if there were any questions there. But that should be pretty simple, not too challenging. Number 2, though, is an inequality. And in order to graph an inequality, we still need y by itself. Here, y was by itself. Y equals something. Here, y is not by itself. It's hidden in this left side, and so we must solve for it. In order to get y by itself, we have to solve for y, removing this 2x and the negative 3. And we start with the 2x. We subtract 2x because the 2x is positive. And from here, what I'd like you to do, after giving you that first step, I'd like you to try it on your own. Pause the video, try it on your own. See if you can get y by itself before graphing the equation. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video, and you would have found that the next step, the 2x's would cancel out. Then we get negative 3y, bring it down. Bring down your inequality symbol. And remembering that we can't combine a 9 and a negative 2x because this has an x and this does not. They are not like terms. But what we can do is just write them right next to each other. 9 minus 2x. From here, we got to get rid of the negative 3. And so we better divide by negative 3. And remember, on the right, we must do it to everything when we divide. On the left, the negative 3's cancel out. And I'm willing to bet just a little bit that a couple people got to this point and forgot that when we divide by a negative in an inequality, we flip the sign. So it becomes a less than symbol. 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. And negative 2x divided by negative 3, that's something you can plug into your calculator, and it should spit out positive 2/3. And then don't forget the x. And so we have y, m, x plus b, except it's just in a slightly different order on the right. Excuse me. The m is a 2/3 and the b is negative 3. So we begin at negative 3 with a slope of 2/3. So I go up 2 over 3. Up 2 over 3. We can go backwards, down 2 to the left 3, down to the left 3, and we'll see that all those points are in a straight line. Now, before you connect them, pause the video again and see if you can think about the two decisions we must make to graph an inequality. So pause the video, talk with someone next to you, see if you can remember the two decisions we need to make in order to graph an inequality. Decision 1 has to do if we use a solid or a dashed line to connect these points. Here we're going to use a dashed line because I do not have an or equal symbol underneath. It's just less than. So because I don't have that or equal to line, it will be a dashed or a dotted, whatever you want to call it, line. Still with arrows at both ends. Okay, so there are little breaks in the line here. Second decision is whether I shade above or below the line. Here I'm going to shade below because it is a less than symbol. So because I have less than, I'm going to shade everything below the line. Once again, if you have questions on that, feel free to talk to a neighbor. Number 3, it's a little different now. I haven't asked you this specific type of question yet. It says, what is the slope and y-intercept of this line? Referring to this graph up here. It says, what is the slope and y-intercept of this line? Usually I've given you the slope and y-intercept and had you graph it. Let's go in reverse. What is the slope and y-intercept? Well, I think we can find the y-intercept pretty easily. Because just by looking at this graph, I can see my line crosses the y-axis at -6. This point right here is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept B is -6. The slope, however, M, just takes a little bit more effort to find. Pause the video now, take about 30 seconds, see if you can find the slope of this line, understanding that you need to count between 2 points, how far you go up and how far you go over. We found one point down here. A second point you might find is this one right here. That's a point we can count to. Also, this is a point we could count to. This is a point we could count to. And that's a point we could count to. Okay, so we have a couple options here. However, what I'd recommend to keep the numbers as low as possible, just count from the nearest 2 points. So like from here to here. From this point here, we would have to go up 1, 2, 3, and over 1 to get to that point. So the slope is up 3 over 1, which is just a slope of 3. Last part, it says write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. Well, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And we found m, and we found b. So all we have to do is plug it in. Y equals 3x plus -6. Or you could have also written y equals 3x minus 6. These are the same thing. Okay, moving on to number 4. It says, what is the slope and y-intercept of line A? The slope and y-intercept of line A. Line A, I know it's kind of tough to see, is this line right here. Now, using just a verbal description, we would say this is a flat line, or it's a horizontal line. So what is the slope and y-intercept? Once again, y-intercept is probably the easiest one to find. Pause the video now and talk to a partner, whoever you're sitting next to, and tell them what you think the y-intercept is. Once doing so, hopefully both of you said 3, because it crosses the y-axis at the point, or sorry, rather at 3 on the y-axis. Okay, so that's 3. That's right between 2 and 4. So what's the y-intercept? The b, that's 3. The slope, however, this is just something to remember. The slope of a horizontal or flat line is always 0. Slope is 0. Because you never go up, you just go over. So if you go up 0, over however many, the slope is just going to be 0. So what's the equation of line A in slope-intercept form? Plug in your m, plug in your b. Y equals 0x plus 3. But of course, we know this kind of looks funky. We've never seen something like this. 0x is the same as just 0. Not x, not 1x, just 0. So you don't even have to write it. So y equals 3 is correct. So that's line A. A horizontal line, you'll just have y equals and then your number. For line B, though, once again, using a verbal description, we would say it's a vertical line. It's straight up and straight down. To find the slope and y-intercept of this line, it's going to be a little different, especially since this line does not have a y-intercept. It never crosses this y-axis. It will never, ever cross. And in fact, we call that being parallel. So because they're parallel and they never cross, the y-intercept, you can just write, it does not exist. There is no y-intercept. What's the slope, though? The slope, that's even more interesting. Slope, even if you found 2 points, you just find yourself going up and never over. So for example, this would be up 1 over 0. So 1 over 0. If you type in 1 over 0, 1 divided by 0 in your calculator, you'll get an undefined error. What does that mean? The slope of a vertical line, in math, we call that as undefined. It is undefined slope. But then it asks, write the equation of line B in slope-intercept form, which seems impossible if we don't have a y-intercept and our slope is undefined, whatever the heck that even means. However, one thing we didn't mention is the x-intercept of this line, where it crosses the x-axis. It crosses the x-axis at -2, which means that every point on this line forever and ever will have an x-coordinate of 2. For example, this point right here, that's the point -2, 2, with -2 as x-coordinate. This point right here is the point -2, 1, with -2 as the x-coordinate. And you could do that for an ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever on this line. The x-coordinate is always -2. And so the equation of the line is just that x is always -2. If you have any questions on that, talk to a neighbor. We're going to do 2 more together before I set you loose. On this one, it asks us to put equations in point-slope form and then slope-intercept form. I'm going to run through this fairly quickly, but we did do this last time. Point-slope form, as a reminder, it's always good to write it and remember it, is y minus y1 equals x times x, equals m times x minus x1, excuse me. So if I want to write this thing right here, this point and slope in point-slope form, I start by labeling x1, y1, and I know my m. So y minus y1 is 7. So y minus 7 equals m. M is -4. Times x, that's a placeholder, don't replace it. X minus x1 is 2. Then from here, we can solve this and put it, equation should be in slope-intercept form. So let's put it in slope-intercept form. We start by distributing. And then we add 7 to both sides. And that would be your answer. Once again, why is this useful? This equation tells us the y-intercept, the b, tells us this 15. This equation does not. Need time to write that? Feel free to pause the video. Now, the last thing we're going to do is use the points 2, 2, and -5, 4 to do the same thing. However, we don't have a slope, so let's get a slope first using our slope formula that we learned last time. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Labeling the points x1, y1, x2, y2. We can plug into this formula and get -4 minus 2 over -5 minus -2, which we know changes to -5 plus 2. In the end, this will be -6 over -3, which is just a slope of 2. So m equals 2. Plug it in to y minus y1. Y minus y1 is 2 equals m, which is 2, times x minus x1 is -2. A lot of 2's in here. We can change that, of course, to y minus 2 equals 2 times x plus 2, and solve using the same steps as before. You should get, as your final answer, y equals 2x plus 2. Tune into the next video to see your practice problems for today. For now, try to fill in this little gap right here. Go back, watch the video again. If you feel like I went too fast, to fill in all the details, pause the video and talk to a friend before we go to the next video.